Linzy is a private practice therapist turned money coach who helps therapists and health professionals feel calm and in control of their finances. Linzy is the daughter of an accountant, and Linzy is like half therapist, half bookkeeper. So when she saw her skilled colleagues struggle with the money side of business, Linzy put her lucky combination of people skills and money skills together to help therapists develop peace of mind about their money, focusing on the how of making the financial side of private practice doable and even super satisfying. Through her transformative online courses and her top-rated podcast, Money Skills for Therapists, Linzy has helped thousands of people learn the systems and skills to totally change their relationship with money. And that's how I heard about Linzy, actually, because I followed her podcast for a while. And I thought I need to reach out to her because she is helping us make sense of the numbers and we are giving the numbers. And so that's a little bit of what we're going to focus on today. And we might have to have her back for a part two because there's going to be so much good information here. But I'm excited to just hand it over now to you, Linzy, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, folks, for joining us today. I'm very excited to see like a whole bunch of names that I don't know. That's always like this beautiful thing to be like, oh, the therapy world is so big. There's so many of us doing this work. So today we're going to spend time talking about what do the numbers mean, how to use your data to make great financial decisions. And I will let you know that I do have all of your video up. So for those of you who are on video, thank you for being on video. I love to see your faces to know if I'm on the right track. Madeline, you're already a great active listener. I deeply appreciate it. So if anybody else feels like going on video, I do want this to be a conversation. I'm going to be sharing information with you today, and like information is going to be coming this way, but also I do want this to be a conversation. I always struggle when my podcast manager wants me to do solo episodes. Like I'm like, I don't want to talk to myself. That's boring. I want to talk to people. So lovely to see you all here today. And I've got also the chat up. Tori, if you can keep an eye on the chat, if there's anything I miss as I go along, that we'll catch at the end. I see there's a couple questions there already that I think are more for you. Yep, there we go. Recording will be shared. Beautiful. Okay, so let's dig into what the numbers mean. So my goal is that by the end of our time together today, you're going to have learned more about group practice finances in general, including some common benchmarks for healthy group practice numbers. Like, what do healthy group practice finances actually look like? You're going to understand more about your role as the financial leader of your group practice, which is a role that PracticeVital is helping you to really own. And you're going to understand more about your own PracticeVital numbers and what they're telling you about the financial health of your practice. To get there, we're going to talk first about understanding group practice finances. We're going to talk about the concept of financial leadership. What is that? How does that apply to you? We're going to talk about using data actively to lead your team. What does it look like to be using these numbers in your role? And then PracticeVital, what stories are the numbers telling? So I will say at the end, I'm planting the seed right now that I will be asking if folks are up for sharing your dashboard for us to explore and do some like analysis of your numbers and what they're telling you financially. So I'll plant that seed if anybody feels like you're like, I think that might be me. Just know that there'll be an opportunity. So, pull up your PracticeVital for later on, because it's always helpful for us to talk about real numbers. One of the things about finances in general is we don't get good financial education. We don't talk openly with other business owners. We don't talk with other people about money. Sometimes we're not even talking with our partner openly about money. So it's very powerful for us to talk about real numbers. We're going to be talking about numbers today, and we'll be getting into some real numbers too as we get further into the conversation. So I'm going to ask you to start by sharing in the chat. What is the first word that comes to mind when you think about group practice finances? Uncensored. It can be swear words, that's fine. It can be words that are not words. First word that comes to mind when you think about group practice finances. Let me know in the chat. Lots of revenue, but little profit. Vicky, yes. Okay, it's a lot coming in the door, but it is not sticking around. Okay. Ashley, importance of systems. Yep. Yeah, Tori, a lot of unknowns. Yeah, Camille, hard to accurately measure ROI. Yeah, and in a group, there's lots of areas where we're making investments that ROI, is relevant. Regina, overwhelming. Okay, so noticing for yourself what that word was for you, because that's your starting place, right? When it comes to like really looking at the finances and understanding how these numbers impact the financial health health of your business. Camille, not a lot of benchmarks. We're going to talk about some benchmarks today. So we'll start getting some more benchmarks going. Mindful soul admin, do you have your hand up? Is your hand raised on purpose? No, just Zoom is being obnoxious. Okay. I think Tori could probably lower your hand. All right, beautiful. Okay, so super quick introduction. My name is Linzy, therapist by training, social worker. Actually, my background is in complex trauma and dissociation, but I've now completely switched what I do, or shifted what I do, I should say, to business coaching for therapists, focusing specifically on finances. I'm the creator of Money Skills for Therapists and Money Skills for Group Practice Owners, which are my two courses that I run. As Tori mentioned, I also have a podcast called Money Skills for Therapists, which is in the top 2% of podcasts in the world, which is exciting that, people want to listen to conversations about money. And I am a lover of both spreadsheets and feelings. So I love order. I love making sense of data, love a good spreadsheet, but I'm a people person till the end of time, and very focused on relationships and the meaning of numbers. Like, what do numbers actually mean for us as people in our lives? Since 2018, I've helped over 700 private practice therapists and group practice owners in my courses. So that includes a whole range of professions and modalities to transform their businesses and their lives. So let's start first by just talking about group practice finances, how to think about group practice finances. When you started your group practice, when you stepped into group practice, you stepped into a higher level of business complexity than you had as a solo practitioner. And I do find a lot of group practice owners get into group practice almost accidentally sometimes, where it's like you were full and then a friend of yours, wanted to see somebody, or you had an opportunity to have an intern and then the intern wanted to stay, right? So a lot of times we end up kind of accidentally growing, because of our own success, growing into group practice. But like shit gets a lot more complicated very quickly when we move into group practice. There's a lot of moving parts in a group practice financially that make or break the financial health of your group practice. And so often the decisions that you made on the fly while building your practice end up being the key elements that determine how your practice finances are working or how they're not working. I like to think about the analogy of your group practice as like a machine, right? There's all these components that are coming together, and it's a machine that you've built, like you've made this machine, but you might not have realized how all the different parts of it worked when you were putting it together. So these are some of the gears that come together to give us financial results. You'll see here we have the fees that you set for your therapist sessions. If you're on insurance, it's going to be like, which insurances are you choosing to take? If it's out of pocket, it's like, what is the fee? What are the sliding scale ranges that you have? The amount of clients that the client hours that your therapists are working, right? Do you have folks who are seeing three clients a week, 15 clients a week, 25 clients a week? There's also your operating expenses. What is the overhead that's going into your practice? How much rent are you paying? Are you remote? Are you getting training for your people? Which is the benefits you offer. Like, how are you supporting your team? Your admin team's wages. Do you have no admin? Do you have one admin? Do you have a fleet of admins? Your therapist income splits or wages. How much are they getting paid from that money that's being collected? And your client policies, and whether they're actually being enforced, right? Cancellation policies, rebooking, all of these things are coming together to give you a certain financial result. And there's probably actually a couple more gears I could add here. But as we can see, there's a lot of components that kind of like mash is not the right word. If a machine is mashing, I think it's broken, but that work together to give us a certain result. And all of these moving parts end up shaping how much money there is at the end of the month. There was that mention earlier of like lots of revenue, but not a lot of profit. These are the gears that give us that result. It also determines how much you and your team can actually get paid from your group practice. It determines whether or not you can afford things like employee benefits, to take care of and retain your team members. And it also determines whether or not you can save up for your group practice visions and dreams. Like maybe you want to buy a space. Maybe you yourself want to take a sabbatical at some point. All of these financial components determine what is possible. So as I mentioned, these are the gears. But today, talking about PracticeVital, we're going to zoom in on the gears that PracticeVital really helps you understand really, really well, which is really about the client hours, right? And the financial pieces that come out of the sessions that the sessions that your clinicians are doing with clients. So I will tell you, having worked with lots of group practice owners, the number of clients that your clinicians see each week tends to have the biggest overall impact on financial results. Okay. So of those gears that we looked at, the one that often is the one that is the biggest determinant of financial health and the biggest area where health can be immediately improved financially is the amount of sessions that your clinicians are working each week. Within that data, right, within the information of like what is the average sessions that somebody's doing in a week, are these other pieces of data that then you can look at to understand what's happening, right? What is their conversion rate when they have a first consult? How many of those people are actually turning into a client? Like, are they losing people at that stage? The churn rate, right? How many clients are dropping off after 1 or 2 sessions? And then the retention rate, like, does the client stay with them for 10 sessions? Is their average client sessions 30? I was thinking after we chatted last night, Tori, I think you said somebody in your practice has like 38 average sessions or something.
Yeah, I think we looked at the data for my practice and it
Yeah.
was 39 sessions on average for one of my
Yes.
therapists. Mhm.
Yes. And I was thinking about myself, like it's been a minute since I was in private practice, but I remember at one point looking at that for myself with my own private practice, and I had like a similar number, right? Like on average, people stay a long, long time. That results in financial health, right? When you're not having to bring in new people. It's always easier to retain somebody than to have somebody new. So all of these numbers are coming together to determine just how many clients each person is seeing each week. So in terms of guidelines, I'm going to share some guidelines here. And of course, we know that guidelines are not hard and fast rules. Everybody here has a different group practice. You have different overheads. Some of you are only paneled with insurance, some are only premium out of pocket, right? There's range here. But generally speaking, across many, many scenarios, this is what I have seen. Clinicians are not profitable to your business when they see less than 10 to 12 clients a week. Okay. This, when I say they're not profitable, it means that not only are they not leaving money in the business, like not only is there not some extra money left over from the work they do, but often they're actually losing money for the practice. Like the cost of employing them in terms of the overhead associated with them, the admin team costs, the advertising that's being done for them, is actually greater than what's being left in the business to pay for their role. Okay. Very curious. I'm going to pause on that for a second. How does that land with people? Let me know in the chat if anybody's having like a reaction to that. What do you notice when I say that? Does that make sense? Does that make you want to barf because everybody on your team is seeing less than 10? Yeah, Vicky sees that it's true. Yeah, you've seen that wear out. Mm-hmm. Camille, 15. Yep. Yep. And usually 15 is right there, Camille. So yeah, it definitely makes sense. Yeah. Break even 13. This is a number that Julie Harris, who wrote Profit First for Therapists, who's amazing. She had mentioned this to me once in a conversation. And in my work with group practice owners, I've seen it bears out over and over and over again. So it's like this 10 to 12 is like just the break even point. When you get above this is when profitability starts happening, right? And money's actually being put back into the business. So, of course, then the converse is also true, which is like clinicians who convert and retain clients and are seeing more than 15 clients a week have a huge positive financial impact on your practice, right? It's those clinicians who are like more in that like solid part-time to getting into full-time range. They're having a very positive financial impact. And then, of course, the clinicians who are churning more clients, have retain less clients, see less than 10 a week, they're usually having that negative financial impact. So we're going to look now at a screenshot from PracticeVital. And I'm going to ask you to notice what you notice looking at this particular clinician's numbers. We're going to think about the financial implications of some clinician numbers. So this is, I pulled this. I have a couple of students in my course right now, Money Skills Group Practice Owners, who are PracticeVital users. So I just went into one of my students, looked at one of their random clinicians and pulled these numbers. This is a real clinician's numbers. I'm going to ask you to take a look at these numbers and let me know in the chat, or somebody is welcome to unmute. What do you notice about these clinicians' numbers? What sticks out to you about this information?
They're very underutilized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So only half meeting what they could be
Mm-hmm.
and should
Mm-hmm.
be.
Yep. Yep. Vicky, yep. 50% don't stay longer than 4 sessions. They have a very high churn rate. So they're not keeping those early clients.
And the retention rate is also really high, 24%. So that means
Yes.
we're giving them the clients, but they're
Yes.
not able to retain
They're
the
not
client.
holding on.
So it's just the a lot of marketing, getting more clients,
Yes.
sending it to
Yes.
them, and then they're just not able to keep them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, like I think about marketing often as like marketing is like you're trying to put people in your bucket. If your business is your bucket, marketing is like, come to my bucket. It's a great bucket. But if you have holes, if you're losing people, it's like you're spending all this energy and money on marketing and folks are falling out the side. So this would be like, this is how I would visualize it is like folks are coming to this clinician, but they're not staying. They're falling out even before they hit that 4 session, and then they're falling out before they hit the retention goal that this clinician or has set, like that this group practice has set. Yes, Jen, a hole in the boat. Yes, hole in the boat, hole in the bucket. This is like we're seeing loss here. Austin, very high churn. Progression from July through November is dropping off a bit in December. Yes. So there's also, yeah, it's like we had this like upward trend and then like something happened in December and now it's kind of like leveled out a little low. Like they peaked in December or in November, sorry, at 62. December, we might expect to see a bit of a dip. We have like the holidays, but they haven't gone back up to those November numbers since, even though it's like January. So, okay. So looking at this then, like folks said, like Tori pointed out, the goal that was set for this clinician is 20 clients a week. That was the benchmark. They're hitting 10 and a half, right? So right away, half utilization. It's like they're supposed to be a full-time clinician at 20. They're seeing 10 and a half. Huge gap. Kathy, I see you like shaking your head. It's like more than half of their clients aren't staying past that 4th session, as we said, and only 24% of clients are staying past 8 sessions, which is the amount that this particular group practice owner has set as retention. That's what she counts as a retained client. Only 24% are staying. And it's not like this is a new clinician where we don't have the data. Like this is a whole year's worth of data, and we're seeing that only 24% of people are staying past that 8 sessions. So now let's think about the financial implications of a scenario like this. So this is I pulled this actually, Tori, this is from your practice. I covered the clinician names. But looking at the report in PracticeVital of the average session fee per clinician, we're going to say that this person is one of these clinicians. Their average session fee is 134. So between the different insurances that they take, on average, a client is worth $134 of revenue per session. So thinking about the math on that, if the average session fee for this clinician is $134, and we have 20 sessions per week as a goal. So I'm going to assume that like when this person was brought on, they were brought on as a full-time clinician. The goal is that they're seeing 20 clients a week. This is our agreement. They're only seeing 10 and a half. So they're falling 9.5 sessions short of our agreement, right? This is the gap. There's a 9.5 per session gap in their schedule. If I take that 9.5 sessions and I multiply it by the revenue they would be bringing in, that's just over $1,200 less revenue each week that this clinician is there's opportunity there for $1,200 more that's not happening. If I multiply that by 46 weeks a year, and when I'm thinking about numbers of working, I always multiply by like 46 or 48, right? Nobody works 52 weeks a year. I don't, you don't, nobody should. Our employees are not robots, they're humans. So I multiply by 46 to give us like a nice conservative number of, I'm assuming 6 weeks of the year, sorry, they're not working, whether they're on vacation or sick or it's Christmas, whatever it is. When I multiply that out over 46 weeks to give me an annual picture, that's $58,000 of revenue that basically this person, we agreed that they would be earning for the practice that they're not, right? That's a $58,000 delta. So taking that just one step further to think about the financial impact, let's say that this clinician split is 60-40, right? They get 60% of every session, the practice retains 40%. So that means that they are making $35,000 less a year than they could be if they were actually seeing the 20 clients a week that we have contracted for. And it also means that the practice is making $23,000 less a year with this one clinician, right? And the $23,000, to be clear, that's the money that would come to the practice. That's not profit. That's the money that's just going to come back into the practice to pay for overhead, the expenses, the rent, the software, the administrative team that's supporting them, the front desk people, the billing people, and your leadership compensation, right? All of that money has to come out of that $23,000 that's now not there, right? Any questions about this piece? Does this all click and make sense? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that is like, a great example of that's just one clinician, right? If we just play that forward for a second, let's say you have 5 folks on your team who have that kind of half performance. You can multiply this number by 5. And now we're talking about $100,000 less going towards the operation of the business because of those numbers, right? So now we're like, those get to be some pretty meaty numbers pretty quickly. So just to talk about where the impact is made, if this clinician were just to see 3.5 more clients a week, let's say something's changed in their life. The 20 they're contracted for is not realistic right now. Maybe they just had a baby. Maybe there's a story behind these numbers. We meet with them. They're still an amazing clinician. We want them on the team. If they just see 3.5 more clients each week to bring their average sessions to 14 sessions a week instead of that 10.5, that's an extra $469 a week coming into the practice, or $20,000, $21,000 a year for that 3.5 extra sessions, right? And it's those extra sessions beyond the 10 to 12 that we talked about, beyond that floor, that is actually the profit for the business. That's where the oxygen happens, right? Profit is oxygen for your business. Profit, I'm not sure where you folks are in your relationship to the word profit, but historically, therapists have seen profit as a dirty word. It's like, we don't want to profit off people, right? But profit is oxygen. It's the extra money in your business that's left at the end of the month that is creates stability in your practice, that allows your practice to continue. Without extra money staying in the business each month, your practice will not survive. You have no stability. I feel like I'm laying it on thick right now. Apologies to everybody, but this shit is serious. Some other financial benchmarks, it was mentioned that we don't get a lot of those, that are helpful for you to know is team expenses. This is you as a leader, maybe not your additional, but like your base salary as a leader if you're an S Corp or a corporation. Your salary, your admin team, and your clinicians' wages together should be usually 70% or less than your revenue, right? If I look at a clinician's numbers, if I look at a group practice numbers, and this is what I do with group practice owners, if I look at their numbers and we see, 100,000 came in that month, but 80,000 went to team, I immediately know where the problem is. It's really 70, yeah, it's 70% or less sustainable. Some people would say 65. Again, there's wiggle room there. But that's often the place. If you are noticing, you're like, where is my money? Why are we making so much money and there's no money in the bank and I'm scraping bottom at payroll time? Often it's team expenses that are going to be the thing. And there's ways to fix that. The second piece is profit should be 10 to 15% of your revenue. People who are like, venture capitalists, when they come in and they want to buy group practices, they want to see more profit than that. They want to see like a money printing press. They're looking for like 20% profit, but normal, healthy, sustainable business numbers are 10 to 15% profit. And what I talk to my students, my personal take on it, take it or leave it. When I talk to students in Money Skills for Practice Owners, I talk about, generally speaking, once we start to get into more profit than that, like 20, 25%, somebody's being exploited, right? Whether it's your team is being underpaid, you're being underpaid. 10 to 15% tends to be a healthy benchmark. Yeah, Vicky, last year was 6% profit. 6% is pretty close to 10, Vicky, but it's that extra little bit that creates the cushion and the breathing room. Does team expenses include payroll, benefits, all direct expenses, owner salary? Yeah, that's all the things that it includes. Yeah, and then payroll taxes. So employee payroll, that's including the employee taxes. Yeah, all of that is your team expenses, Camille. That's correct. Okay, so let's talk now about the concept of financial leadership. So as the practice owner, as the group practice owner, you are the visionary in charge of your group practice. You are the one who's setting the culture of your team. You're defining the values of like what you guys are doing. Why are you doing this work? And your team is there with you because they align with your vision, right? The people who are going to stick around are people who are like really bought into specifically what you have built and what you're doing. Your practice also needs like to last, right? A practice that is losing money or scraping by cannot continue indefinitely, right? We can only do that for so long. And a leader who is burning out or feeling resentful for being underpaid is also not able to lead for so long, right? Knowing and understanding your numbers is essential to identifying what is working and what needs to change in your group practice numbers. So financial leadership is about balancing these two things. It's about staying grounded in your values. We still want you to be who you are. We still want you to be doing the work that you're doing because it's incredible and it changes the world, while also being connected with the reality of your numbers. So your group practice can be sustainable. And so your group practices can keep taking care of you and your team and the folks that you're serving for years and years to come. right? I hear so many stories of people where it's like, there's a group practice in town and they grow really fast and they're hiring all these people and they're offering amazing wages. And like 6 months later, they shut down, right? Because it's not sustainable. So they kind of like you burn bright and you burn out. But ultimately, we do much better work when we're able to serve our communities over decades. So, as the leader of the group practice, you can delegate tasks related to finances. And I want you to, right? Like, I don't want you doing your own bookkeeping. I don't want you doing your own billing, right? You can delegate tasks like tracking, but you cannot delegate responsibility and financial leadership, right? That is yours. It's your business and it's your vision, and no one can steer the ship better than you can. I'm opening a cohort for Money Skills for Practice Owners right now, and I'm having a conversation right now in my inbox with somebody who was saying like she spent all this money on a fractional CFO, spent tons of money, and like did not get the deliverables she needed, like is no further ahead. And the reality is like your business is yours, right? And you need to be the one who's owning this and learning this knowledge because nobody cares about your business as much as you do. So hi, Mayra. I saw you slide in there. Nice to see you. Welcome. Let's talk about using your data to lead your team. So what do you actually do with these numbers? This is something Tori and I were talking about. Is like folks are like, you have all these amazing numbers. Well, how do you actually use these to run your practice better? So this is where we get into weekly CFO time, right? CFO, Chief Financial Officer. Unfortunately, you are not only the CEO of your practice, you're not only the Chief Executive Officer, you're also the Chief Financial Officer, right? You're the one who's in charge of the numbers. And money needs to be attended to in light, regular ways in your group practice. So setting time aside each week to complete your financial leadership tasks and own your role as a financial leader allows you to stay on touch of and stay on top of all of these things related to your finances. One very important thing to do during this time is to do weekly metrics check-ins, right? So each week, spending some time with your metrics, right? You might be doing this alone if you don't have a team, or you could be doing it with your admin team, possibly like your leadership team if you have the clinical team, your supervisors, pulling your numbers together to make sense and process what has just happened in the last week, right? What's going on with our numbers? General areas to keep track of on a weekly basis are financial metrics. How much money is in the bank? Are we about to do a payroll run that we don't have the money for? Do I need to move money from somewhere else? Marketing metrics, like are we spending on marketing? How many calls did we get last week? And client metrics, right? So like, are people contacting us? Are those people turning into leads? Are those leads actually staying on as clients? How many clients are being seen each week? And all of this you can get from PracticeVital, right? So looking at the left side here, here's your PracticeVital menu. I just opened up the reports section. Completed sessions, retention, conversion, cancellation, revenue. This is all the stuff that each week, if you take a look at it, you're going to start to see what's happening and you can get ahead of anything that's becoming a problem. Then you as the leader get to zoom in on the areas of focus and concern, right? If you start to notice my team is having trouble retaining, we're not retaining clients, then that's the metric that you can really start to focus on. How is our retention going? Our retention numbers, are they moving up, right? Maybe it's about lead generation. Maybe it's about converting people from that first call to the subsequent calls. Maybe it's a churn issue. Maybe the wrong people are being assigned to the wrong therapists. Can those people be assigned to somebody else, right? You get to dig in and identify, but once you zoom in, now you have an area of focus. You can compare the numbers that you're looking at to the benchmarks that you choose to look at what needs attention for the upcoming week. And then you can use the data in PracticeVital to really drill in to what the issue is, right? Is it that you, as I mentioned, are having issues with inquiries, conversion? Is it churn or retention issues? Is it clinician availability? Like I was talking with one of my students yesterday from Money Skills for Practice Owners, and she was like, this clinician is amazing. She has no availability. She's supposed to be seeing 15 clients a week. She only has 12 spots available, right? So it's like, it's not a problem with her retaining clients, but her clients have nowhere to book appointments, right? That's now there's a very clear thing that you can directly address with that clinician. Or that you write policy, right? Like most problems in group practice end up being solved by policy. You're like, this is our policy. Here's a new policy. This is our policy on availability. This is how this works. And then addressing concerns with team members, right? Implementing projects to solve the problem, right? So maybe that is writing some policy. Maybe it's doing a workshop with your clinicians. Maybe it's having individual coaching conversations. And having those hard conversations early and often, right? If you're looking at your metrics, you're like, why is our sessions down so much last week? And then you click into somebody's schedule. It's like, oh, this person only saw 5 clients last week. They were supposed to see 12. Now you have information to go check in with that clinician or ask their supervisor to check in with them. What happened last week? Were they sick? Is something going on? Is there a trend here? Are we going to get those people rebooked? Right. But this lets you drill into where are actually your points of intervention that are going to make all the difference in your group practice numbers. And an important part of working with the data is getting clear about your actual goals, right? What are the numbers that your practice needs to be sustainable? That's different for all of us, right? This is where you can then set up and customize, and I know, Tori, you do this with folks, to customize those numbers in PracticeVital, right? Adjust your PracticeVital so that you're getting the feedback on your numbers that's actually accurate, right? Like if you're not expecting clinicians to see clients weekly, if it's more of like a bi-weekly tends to be more normal, then you set that as like the regular interval you're expecting. Because if you set it to 7 days, you're going to have numbers that look terrible, but they're not, right? So starting to really understand what your numbers need to look like in terms of how many clients folks are supposed to be seeing, what is your goal for retention, what is your goal for churn. And I think earlier, Tori, there was a question there about retention goals. Like, do you have benchmarks, Tori, that you give folks for goals around retention, what you see as normal?
Yeah, so we have kind of standards built into the tool. And so you can always find those sort of general benchmarks, guidelines. That being said, it's not representative of what we're seeing across all of our practices. It's not that sort of a benchmark. It's more of a starting point where people can use it and find what makes sense for them. I also think internal comparisons are one of the most useful things we can do. So
Mhm.
look in your team and see who is your star performer, what is their retention rate, or what is the highest retention rate in your practice? Because you might find that in Canada, we have found the retention seems to be lower across the board, um, for everyone. And so I think those internal comparisons are really useful.
Mhm. I can tell you, I think it's because in Canada, basically everything is cash pay. If you want to do the
Yeah.
Canada to
Yeah.
American convert, yeah, therapy is almost never free. So
Right.
yes,
Right.
yes. Okay. So looking at that internal
Right.
comparison.
Right. But generally, we have it where it's 70% or higher is considered like the ideal percentage
Mhm.
for retention, meaning 70% of your clients stay for that 8 or more sessions. And all of that's customizable. So you could change it from 70% to 60%. You could change
Mhm.
8 to 6 sessions. So it's really a starting point.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Okay. So now let's dig into some numbers. Um, Curiosity is really helpful when it comes to numbers. All of you, I actually assume, have a good amount of curiosity because you are specifically working with a tool to give you great data. So you already know that these things are important. Who would like to share your dashboard so we can poke around and think about, look at your numbers and the financial implications of them? Looking for a volunteer. Farah, is that you opening your mouth to volunteer?
I didn't, but I can.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh, Mayra, I saw your hand up. Do you want to? Yeah. Farah, are you okay if I go with Mayra? She's in my
Yeah.
course, so
And then if there's time, yeah,
we're
I'm
used to
happy to.
poking around together. Okay, beautiful.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay,
Um,
let me open it up real
yes.
quickly.
Okay. Okay. So I'll stop my share so that you can start yours. Beautiful.
Can you see that?
I can. Let's start there. Um, so yes, let's go back to your clinician metrics there.
We started working with Practice Vital
Mm,
about 6 weeks ago,
okay.
maybe five
Okay.
weeks ago.
Okay.
And so it shined some good light
Yes.
to where
Yes.
now we start every week with goals
Yes.
and every month. Yeah, so it was being able to start looking at our schedule for the next week a day or two
Yes.
before we were done with the week. For some
Okay.
people, it's on Friday. For some people, it's on Saturday.
Yes.
That way, we could do any kind of reach out that we needed to do to fill in our
Mm,
minimum schedule. And for us to hit the 26, because we do
yes.
have a high cancellation rate,
Yes.
was being able to have 33 in place.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
So in order to hit the 26, you have learned that you need to book 33.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Which is brilliant because we see that here with the cancellation rate.
Mm-hmm.
Like these numbers include a cancellation rate, right? So in order to hit the numbers you want to see, you have to aim higher, knowing that there'll be a certain amount of cancellations
Right.
that
Right.
are happening. Yes. Beautiful. So yeah, looking at this, if we scroll down now, I'm seeing a couple folks who are just a little bit low, like a session and a half low.
Mhm.
Um, but very like these are some rock and rolling numbers, Mayra.
Right, right.
Tori, would you
And
agree with that? Is there anything here that actually screams to you, Tori? Thinking about the financial implications?
Yeah, so the productivity is looking good. And I think
Yeah.
that's where we need to lean in because if you look at the retention and you zoom out to a longer time frame, that's what Myra is noticing is
Yes.
that's an area where probably people are seeing a lot of people,
Mhm.
but we're losing a lot of people quickly.
Right.
And
Yes.
so that means it's a huge hustle. It's like a hamster on a wheel, just trying to like get the next person in, get the next person to keep these schedules as full as they are.
Right.
And
Yes.
then the cancel rates are high, a bit high too for at least the newly licensed folks. I can't see everyone, but I think that's going to also impact. We have to be scheduling so many clients. So you're
Yes.
probably
Yes.
working so hard to get new people in the door all the time.
right. And so that's something that, again, being able to look at the numbers, being able to focus more on what is it that's happening inside the session that we
Yes.
can assist when developing with our clinicians as a group practice, right? And one of them was starting a trauma focused coursework for everybody to
Right.
be able to be a little more solid in how we're going
Yes.
to provide services and that longevity.
Yeah. Right. Because that retention piece, because the most difficult part of business always is always getting a new client. Like it's much easier to keep serving a client who's already there, who already is identified. Yep, I want what you offer. Like this is where I want to be. Bringing somebody back in and retaining them is much easier on the business than finding somebody new. So I'm hearing like this is where you've been putting your work is like how do we help folks stay longer? What do your clinicians need to help folks stay longer?
And so, if I may just show a little bit,
Yeah, please.
we just were diving into one of our clinicians here,
Yes.
and we were looking at these past 2 weeks because she took some time off, and she wanted to know if she was meeting her numbers. And so, just to take a glance of the last 2 weeks, actually the last month, which is, and we're going to put the last date of our month, which is 28-day cycles.
Okay.
And we look at it by weeks. And so this is the week that she had to cancel one day. And so looking at it, we have extra days on the first week so she could compensate, over the month compliance, right, with what we're asking.
Right.
And the 8 right here is because we're still in the middle of the week. So we won't know, but that helped her to not necessarily take PTO that we do offer. Right.
Because she saw that it would, her numbers would be getting lower.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she did have a family emergency, so that's where PTO can be utilized.
Right. Yes. Okay.
So when we do that deep dive down here, we were able to see the specifics because sometimes these are, say, a 25.5, but in the overall general, it would show as a 26.
Right. Right.
So this helps us with our payroll to be very specific of how we're going to pay that session.
Yes. Yes.
And we did see an inconsistency here. So we're going to go back to our simple practice. She said, I did have a new intake, but this new intake didn't come in, but it's marking it. So I'm thinking that maybe on our end, the way we coded it on simple practice was a little off.
Yes. Okay. So improving that will let you get better data as you're, yes. Beautiful. Is there anything, Mayra, when you look at your numbers that concerns you? I'm hearing Tori's noticing a higher cancellation rate.
That we're not giving so many clients, that we're working with the clients that we have right here. And so this number used to be a little bit bigger. Even if I were to compare it over more weeks, and I can do that just by changing, and say I'm going to go back to just January. And since I have it weekly.
Yep. Right.
See the intakes here?
Yes.
And so we're really making sure that we're using our resources wisely and that we're able to expand if we're ready to expand and that we know that. And not necessarily going on the same wheel with the same person that just cannot seem to do the job, right? And so being able to have all of our our steps in place to be able to assist them, but then also to make a decision if we need to make a decision.
Right. Yes. Yes. Being able to drill in. Yes.
Right.
This is
Do
great.
you
Thank
see
you.
anything different?
Yeah, like I mean, as Tori mentioned, like the cancel rate is a point of curiosity, which always makes me curious about policies, right? Like what is happening that folks are canceling? Is there a policy intervention that would help there or not? So that's always a curiosity point. But I think like when I look at this too, Mayra, like if I think about um, financially like points of intervention, when I look at this diagnostically, I'm like, okay, you're moving a lot of clients through, right? There's this volume piece that Tori talked about. It's like lots of folks are having to kind of keep coming in to retain. So there's the retention would make a big difference. But I am seeing utilization is really good. Like folks are seeing lots of clients. They're seeing lots of clients. I get super sleepy thinking about how many clients your clinicians are seeing, which I know we've talked about before, right? Because like I'm more highly sensitive. I wouldn't be able to be successful working for you. But you obviously have workhorses, right? Like folks are really retaining. So, as I think about from your perspective as the financial leader, I would actually probably look at this data and be like, okay, like let's work on maybe being curious about that cancellation rate, um, trying to get folks exactly to that 26. But I would actually say if there's something that's financially not feeling right in your practice, I don't think that it's client sessions. It'd be looking somewhere else, right? And that's where like, that's where you and I are working together. It'd be like, okay, if this is going really well, which it is, but there's still not a lot of money at the end of the month. Diagnostically, we know that actually the problem is going to be somewhere else, right? So is it that your splits are too high? Is there too much overhead, right? Is your admin team too big? And that's where it's like, okay, this is good. We want to keep this up because this is like healthy. So I would be keeping my eyes on these data to keep it healthy and make it healthier. But if I felt like something was on fire, I'd be like, okay, this is not the fire. I would be
Okay,
looking somewhere else for the fire.
got it, got it.
How does
Thank
that sit with you?
Yeah, no, for sure. Because one of the stuck points for me taking your coursework
Yeah.
is not really knowing what percentage it is that I am paying my clinicians. I mean, you look at the
Mm-hmm.
dollar amount, you're like, holy shit, there's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But when we started doing some of the breakdown, it sounded like I was in the
Mm-hmm.
healthier range.
Yes.
And so that
Yes.
allows me to focus on my overhead. So
Yes, exactly. Yes.
am I moving too fast on hiring
Yes.
administration because I'm wanting to move away from some of the
Yes.
stuff, and maybe
Yes. Yeah. And that's where like building out those other financial skills, which you're doing, of
not
being able to like
time
look at
for that
the rest
yet.
of the picture. Oh, sorry, we just spoke over each other. There was a delay. But I was just saying, Mayor, like that's where you building out those other skills to look at the other parts of the picture. It's like you're identifying, like, yeah, maybe it's more around overspending on growth. And like this happens sometimes, right? It's like we get excited, we spend a ton of money, and we kind of like, I picture it like a tree where the roots are not solid enough yet. That's how I think about buffers and profitability. That gives you stability. If the roots aren't strong enough, sometimes if we reach too big, the tree gets heavy and falls over, right? So that's where now, as you're building your skills, you're going to be looking at like how much do we prioritize building buffers and having financial stability, and then spending the money, as it's sustainable to grow in the way that you want to. So this is where you get to make those nuanced decisions of where the money is going to best serve you. Thank you so much, Mayra, for sharing. I really appreciate that. I'm aware of time, so I'm going to jump back in to start to finish off our time. Okay, so um, I'm going to move first into like wrapping up before we move into like a Q&A, actually, as we're, just aware, because I know some folks will probably have to jump off exactly on the hour. I don't know, Tori, is there opportunity to stay a little bit later, or is it like on the hour, we're shutting the shit down, the bar is closing, everybody go home?
I'm happy to stay on. I have a
Okay,
little extra time. I think
beautiful.
people will tend to need to run, but yeah, we
Yes,
can absolutely go over if it
yes. Folks are welcome to stay if you have questions.
great.
But at the end of our time together today, you now have learned more about group practice finances, including some of those common benchmarks that we talked about. You now understand more about your role as the financial leader of your group practice, right? Balancing those values and like that big heart you have with financial reality, right? And making a practice that's sustainable. And you can understand more about what your PracticeVital numbers are telling you by starting to look at what are the financial implications of these numbers. So I'm going to ask you to share in the chat, what are you taking away from this workshop today? What is different for you? Let me know in the chat. Bye, Kathy. Thank you for joining us. Victoria, yeah, those specifics of what to do each week. Yeah, what do you actually do with this information? And I'll say, Victoria, like I start every week with my team with a metrics meeting where like different team members collect the metrics. It doesn't have to be you who does everything. But in my case, being an education business, we have like our marketing person. She collects all our marketing metrics. I do all the financial metrics. Our coach does all the metrics on like course feedback. And then we start the week by looking at the metrics and identifying, is there something here that's a problem that we need to address, as well as talking about the project. So we start each week grounded in the numbers, just to make sure like also nothing's on fire. And also if it's going really well, to be able to be like, shit, things are going really well. So yeah, it's nice to have that touch point every week. Yeah, Lori, little margin of error. Yes, it's true. It's tight, right? So this is where really understanding how your numbers work really makes or breaks things. Um, Looking at numbers more often, yes, weekly, which I don't do now. Yeah, and if you make that just like a light regular thing, Colleen, it can feel pretty neutral. Just doing it little by little. Vicky needing to adjust those benchmarks. Mayra looking at productivity, yes. Yes, part of the bigger financial picture versus the only thing you're looking at, yes. Looking at industry standards and team numbers, yes, and starting one metric at a time, beautiful. If you are interested in learning more about what I do, getting more information on financial leadership, I'm going to share a link here in the chat. I think I can copy it. Let me see if I can paste it. Do I have it? Let's see. Is it still in my? Yes, I do. I've just shared a link there in the chat for a free guide on how to stop feeling overworked and underpaid in your group practice. It's a PDF guide that walks you through some of those common mistakes and how to actually get your group practice finances working. And you'll also hear about our spring cohort of money skills for group practice owners. So money skills for group practice owners is a 6-month course. Mayra's in it right now. And starting last week when I got back from vacation and watching Heated Rivalry and feeling rested finally, I was like, we're going to get on a regular schedule. So we are running MSGPO going forward every April and every October. So if these are skills you want to learn, just like, plant that seed that every April and every October, there's the opportunity to get into that course, and you'll hear about it if you decide to get the guide. And you'll see there it's moneynutsandbolts.com/MSGPO guide. And if you're interested in other stuff, the podcast, Money Skills for Therapists, is a great place to start. You can also reach out by email, and our website is moneynutsandbolts.com. We're slowly changing it to moneyskillsfortherapists.com, but Money Nuts and Bolts is the name of our business. So questions. I would be happy to stick around, chat about questions. What questions do folks have coming out of our conversation today? And you're welcome to unmute or share in the chat. Allison, I'm so glad that this was helpful. I'm really glad you could be here. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, Victoria.
I have 10, and then they all came to me right
I
then.
hear that. They smashed together. Yeah.
But what would you say, because I look at my numbers and then I go, I don't know how to tell this story. So
yes,
I feel like maybe what you're saying is maybe some of the resources that you're suggesting might help us figure out what the story is telling. But
yeah, and the story, being able to understand the story is about financial literacy, right? Like
okay.
Financials are a language, right? Just like Russian is a language. So it takes a minute. Like you're not going to understand it all day one of learning Russian, but like by day 360, you're like doing pretty good. And finances are the same, right? So this is part of like what I help people to do. Like this is what I do, in my course when we look at people's numbers is like, let's look at the story these numbers are telling. Like, okay, so this month, this much came in the door. This much went to your team. This much went to expenses. This is what was left. And then you made a tax payment. So making it into that narrative, part of it is just like spending time with your numbers and being curious and poking around. Do you use like a tracking software, Victoria? Like are your numbers in QuickBooks or something like that?
Well, I just hired an accountant.
Okay. Okay.
So
good.
He's
good.
doing
Good. Good.
that. Yes.
Okay.
Before I was just using a Google Sheets, and my mother.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Google Sheet is good for solo practice. Like in my main course, like my first course that I started for solo practice owners, I give them a Google Sheet that I made. That's really pretty. It's so nice. But group practice is too complicated for a Google Sheet. Like at that point, you need financial software, whether it's QuickBooks or Wave or FreshBooks. There's lots of options. Do you know what tool they're going to be using to do your books?
I think it's QuickBooks. Yeah.
Okay. So it's probably QuickBooks Online. That's what most accountants use at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So QuickBooks, I want to really like give you the seed, the truth that's your data in QuickBooks. They're putting your data together And at any point, you should be able to go in and explore your data. And then, based on how your accountant is set up to serve you, ask them questions about your data. The best way that we can learn about our numbers is to just start to poke around. And then, like I ask Gemini a lot of questions. Like, frankly, Victoria, I'd rather you hire me to learn about finances than Gemini, but I ask Gemini questions about finances all the time to be like, in a balance sheet, when it says this, what does it mean? Right? Like, if you just start asking questions internally of like, oh, what's that? In QuickBooks, you can poke around. Every time you see a report and there's numbers that are highlighted, that's a link where you can poke in and be like, marketing, that looks really high last month. What is that? Poke. Oh, right. I paid that fee for that conference that's coming up, right? Or like, oh, that doesn't belong here. This isn't my marketing person. This is my bookkeeper. Now I'm going to tell my accountant to put it somewhere else. But having that curiosity to just be with really helps you to develop literacy. Just like if you like listen to French radio, eventually you're going to start understanding French. But of course, actually like seeking out resources like the one that I've shared and like the podcast where you're actually getting that information in like a nice digestible way is a way for you to develop that literacy. Like how does that land with you, Victoria? That idea that like this is a language that you can learn.
That was like so validating. I'm like, oh, I feel like I should know all of this. Like, why don't I know this?
No, I don't know how to speak Russian. Why would I know how to speak Russian? Like, nobody taught me how to speak Russian, right?
Yeah.
And like we lack basic financial education culturally, professionally, right? So like, but now not only, are we adults who have to manage personal finances, but we're now business owners. Many group practice owners that I see are managing like pretty fucking big businesses. Sorry, Tori, I don't know if I'm allowed to share in here, but it's like, I see people who are kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but we're making 2 million a year. And it's like, okay, well, you figured out a lot, but getting that literacy in place allows you then to make sense of what you're seeing and make informed decisions. So, part of what my like kind of, nefarious plan for therapists is like helping therapists develop the financial literacy to understand what they're looking at, but also to build a relationship with money where you can own that power. And that power doesn't feel scary or like it should belong to somebody else. It's like, this is mine. I built this amazing business. Money is a resource that can be used to do these incredible things. How do I want to direct money in my group practice? How do I make this reflect my values?
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all that. That was super helpful.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
Also, I just wanted to say it was so validating to be like, okay, it's okay. I'm using my AI to help me along the way.
Yeah. Like if I could have an accountant just sit in my office, I'm pointing here. My husband usually sits here. He's not an accountant. If I could an accountant to just sit here and ask questions, that'd be great. But the second best thing is I find Gemini or something like that will help you synthesize the data to answer your questions. But just start asking questions and then you start getting answers.
Yeah,
great.
That's
Thank
so
you.
Great. Thank you, Linzy.
Thanks, Victoria. Any other questions? Did I do it?
I think you did it. Yeah. It's about right on time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This was so wonderful. Loved it. So did everybody in the chat. So thank you so much for being with us. And yeah, my wheels are turning in terms of, the next time we can have you back and kind of sharing more of your expertise with our community. So thanks, Linzy. And thanks everyone for joining us.
Yes.
And keep checking out our resources page to learn about our next meetup, future webinars, etc. And thanks so much.
Wonderful. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.